Okay, I thought I would describe this camera in a video. This is a Rolleiflex 4x4. It's a 127 format camera, which is somewhere between the 120, which makes a 6x6 centimeter exposure, and the 35 millimeter. The 4x4 format, 4 centimeter by 4 centimeter, is called the 127 film. So that's too big, and this is a little too small. Unfortunately, this size film is hard to come by and quite a process to try to cut yourself. It would be very convenient to be able to use readily available 35 millimeter film, which comes in lots of different stock varieties inside of this camera. So here we are. This is what the inside looks like, and that's what I've tried to jury rig so far. This is the film gate, and I measured the interior between the rails, and it's a 4x4, 4 centimeter by 4 centimeter, but it measures at about, well, it's hard to tell, 41 millimeters this way and this way. The 127 film is on a backing paper, which rides back here between those two pegs, and then the film eventually comes up. So the film would be riding on these silver rails, which would help keep it flat. Incidentally, there is a little film detector here, a switch, that gets pushed forward as the film approaches, which then engages the mechanism for counting the frames and the film advance distance. And that's something that I tried to defeat by taping it back, but I was unsuccessful in doing that. So to load 35 millimeter film in it, you can see it is too narrow. So it doesn't engage the film switch, the film lead switch. And more importantly, it doesn't ride on these rails to keep it flat. So the way I loaded 35 millimeter film in it before was to tape the film onto a 127 backing paper in the center like this, and then have a little extra piece of film here that would come up and engage that switch and get things moving. Worked great. But that was before these railings were put in, these plexi railings were put in. And I tried initially to just stick on a piece of 1 millimeter foam on the horizontals here to try to keep the film flat, but it didn't work for some reason. The first 2 or 3 exposures at the beginning of the roll were sharp, and then the film must not have been wound tightly enough around the paper, because the 4 exposures in the middle of the reel sagged, I think because the film had a bow in it, and I got all kinds of weird out of focus areas. And then at the end again, when most of the film was wound up, it flattened out and I got sharp images. So what I thought I would do is cut, and I saw this on the web, so it's not my original idea, cut some 4 millimeter pieces of plexi here for the 35 millimeter to ride on. And you can see it's just barely enough, so maybe they should be even like 5 millimeters wide. The downside is that the plexi will be in the exposure window. Now, one of the cool things about using 35 millimeter film is that you get the image exposed around the sprocket holes, which has emulsion on it. So it's kind of nice looking. I like the look of it. But the presence of the plexi, if it was very, very clean, it would still leave a line on the exposure, which, you know, it's okay. But it has to be done better than this. And you can see I put it on with tape over the top, which added yet another layer of fog and nastiness, just so it would stay in place. So what I really need is to have nicely cut, maybe 5 millimeter, now that I'm looking at it more closely, pieces plexi wide. This is 1 millimeter thick, by the way, which is which is the height from what I measure of between this black horizontal and the silver rail here. When I run my finger over it, there's no bump at all, so 1 millimeter is right. So 5 millimeters on either side so that the film has a nice platform to write on. This is really too narrow. Although I have used this, and the pictures will come out in a week, so we'll see. For the film to write on, and keep it flat, hopefully. What would be ideal, and I don't know how to manage this, would be is if I could have a lip on this side and on this side, so the 5 millimeter on either side, this shelf frame would just pop in and stay in without having to use tape. I don't know if I put a millimeter wide piece here in the Z direction like this, if I could glue it to the edge of this, and if that would be secure enough. And the advantage to that is also that I could easily take it out and use 127 film if I needed to or wanted to. So yeah, that's it. The other thing is to come up with a way to defeat this switch. There is a, I don't know if you can see it in the video, there's a little dip switch here, which is the door closure indicator. So I tried pushing that down first and then taping this in the up position, hoping to defeat it, but it didn't work. I'm gonna try it again. It seems to me like it should work. The other thing that I've read about but no directions for, now if you use 35 millimeter film, you really don't know how far you've advanced the film to get to the next frame. So it becomes trial and error to try to figure out how many winds you have to give it to get to the next frame without overlap. And the number of winds changes as the thickness of the rolled up film increases. You have to wind it less and less. So it's something that you can train yourself to do, but I've heard told of this fable that somehow you could put a little plastic feeler up at one of these places where the sprocket hole is reachable, and as the film goes around, it would kind of flick it and make a tick, tick, tick noise, supposedly. Then you could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 clicks, feel it or hear it, and then you know you're at the next frame. I have no idea how to accomplish that. When I try to do things like this, it's immediately obvious to me why I am not an engineer. It seems like it's fine and simple, but I get into it and it's not. All right, well, I hope this will be useful and something to kind of as a primer. The yellow color, by the way, is changed by me. I can't do that much work, and it's awfully pretty. And it works. So there you are. That's the project. That's what I've done so far. And sort of successful, but it's not at all elegant. And it could be done so much nicer. Great. Thanks a bunch.